You are listening to the voice of Curtis Turner, Mr. Turner, Professor Turner, or just Turner, whatever you want to call me. I'm one of your instructors for Knowing and Learning, UTED 2010 for the fall 2022 semester. I do not like going over syllabus and course structure on the first day because I think it's boring. We have a discussion-based class, and on the first day, it's going to mostly contain your voices instead of me droning on about this stuff. So instead, you get to listen to a hopefully somewhat quick, really super boring video about the overview stuff. But they are things that you want to know, I'm sure. The first one is, how do you get your grade? Well, there are a variety of assignments in Knowing and Learning. They are, of course, contained in the syllabus, should you choose to read that. I'm going to show you the highlights right now. A lot of the syllabus is just boilerplate stuff that nobody really wants to read. But here are the important things. The major assignments. So the first one is participation and attendance. I do give you credit for being there. Because the class is discussion based, every time we meet, it's important that you're there or you're going to miss. I always assign content to pre-read and prepare, watch videos or whatever to prepare for the discussion, so you'll have been exposed to the content, but all learning requires repetition. So you coming in and discussing the content gives you another repetition to that and increases the likelihood you'll actually learn it. I try not to waste your time with the content we present. I think it's very important. I think it's stuff you need to know. I think it's stuff you need to carry forward in your career, so I want you to have enough exposure to learn it. So discussing it is a really powerful tool for learning retention, as we'll talk about as one of the topics in this class. And then hearing other people's opinions is important too, so I really want you to be there, so I reward you for being there with points, even though that seems a bit elementary maybe. So there are 285 points earned because there are 19 classes that we meet, which isn't all. I'll explain why. We do have some asynchronous class work, so we don't meet every single time for Knowing and Learning. But you earn 15 points each time you come. There are 2 extra days, so basically I give you 2 days allowance to not be there to meet the minimum point requirements, and I'll explain the minimum point requirements in a minute. Educational philosophy is really our final in the class. I have you write a philosophy of teaching and learning at the end. I'll explain all this later. Journaling, each week I have you journal after our week's worth of discussion. This is just another exposure to the content, another repetition. And in the journal entries, I don't ask much. I just say, I ask you to really talk about what your major takeaway is from the week. After the week's discussion and readings, what piece of information do you want to make sure you never forget, that you own, that you carry into your career? Journal about that. That's just another attempt to get it fixed into long-term memory so that you will actually remember it someday or be able to recall it or retrieve it at some point. So these are very important. You have to do at least 13 journal entries, which gives you 2 extra ones for extra points, and I'll show you how that becomes advantageous in a minute. Clinical reflections, I require that you visit a classroom at least 3 times. You can do it up to 5 times. I want you to visit classrooms towards the second half of the semester, and I'll explain this in more detail as it comes up, because I want you to go to classrooms and try to see the things that we're learning about. I want you to observe learners. You'll walk in, you'll interact with kids hopefully, but at the minimum be able to observe learners, watch them struggle. I try to get you into classes where there are struggling students because I want you to try to see what we're talking about. I want you to try and identify the issues the students are dealing with related to learning in the brain and cognitive load and long-term retention, short-term memory issues, all the things that we're going to talk about in the class. I want you to be able to see those. As a trade-off for this, for the clinical, these require clinical visits, and then when you come back, you write a reflection about it, and those are 30 points each. So you can earn up to 150 points here. 90 is minimum, and then you can do 2 additional, which I strongly recommend you go 5, because being in the classroom is the most important thing you can do in any of our programs. I think every master teacher will echo that the time you spend in classrooms where their kids, high school, middle school classrooms, is far more valuable than the time you spend with us even. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that. I do give an allowance. So for the first half of the year, we meet both days of the week, Tuesday and Thursday. Towards the second half, we start meeting only on Tuesdays, and the reason I do that is I allow you time to go make these clinical visits and then write the reflections. There's also asynchronous work that you have to do during those times, readings, quizzes that you have to take, reflections that you have to write, and I'll explain that in more detail when we get there. But there is work required, but it's not as heavy, and you don't have to come to class, so that you at least have that time to go visit a classroom if you need to. I will help you find classrooms to visit if you don't already know of one. You're welcome to visit classrooms in schools that you're already familiar with. There are asynchronous modules, and these come during the days that we don't have class. You're required to do 4 of them. There will be about 8 weeks that we don't have class, so during 4 of those weeks you'll have 4 modules, asynchronous modules that are required, and then there are others that are optional to get 90 extra points, the optional asynchronous modules, and I'll show you where those are at when I flip over to the Canvas shell. Another assignment is mission, vision, or elevator pitch. It's really just a short version of your philosophy. On the last day of class, I'll actually have you write this towards the end of our time together with a week or 2 left in the semester. It's a very short document. It's very difficult to write because you're really putting your entire philosophy into a few sentences or a short paragraph. The last day of class, I have you deliver that to everybody else, because if you believe it, if you feel it, you should be able to stand in front of people and confidently state it. And then we'll give you feedback on that last day of class. And that's it. If you look through the syllabus there, every time I put minimum requirements and then extra, the minimum requirements get you to 790 total points, which is what you need to get a B. You need a B in this class in order to move on to the next class. But I'm assuming you want to get an A, so the goal is 900. So a lot of the extra points you saw in there allow you choice. If there are assignments you don't like, then don't do extra ones for extra points to get to the 900 that you need for an A. Pick something that you like. Do more classroom visits to get closer to that 900 points, but there's some choice. So you don't have to do every single assignment that's in there. You can choose a little bit because you only need 900 points. There are 1,020 available. I don't give A minuses, I give A's only, so 900 is your goal, and I do recommend you get there because you don't want to get a B in this class. You want to save B's for your more difficult science and math classes. And then this just details week by week, which you really don't need, because if you go to the Canvas shell, I organize everything through modules. I'll send announcements from time to time when there are updates, but everything else is in a module cleverly named for the week that we're working in. So Module 0 is where this video is posted, and probably I'll post a syllabus there. And then you're into week 1, which is our first week of classes, and we meet August 23rd is our first day. I'm pretty sure that's right, but I'll double check that. You should too. It's Tuesday of the first week of classes. And this tells you what we're going to do in week 1. This week 1 info shows everything we're going over, so you're welcome to open that up and look through it. And then there's a week 1 looking forward, and that shows you what you need to do to be prepared for the next week. So everything that's in this portion of the syllabus is in there, so you really don't even need to. See if I can scroll up here. There it is. So you really don't even need to look at this, but it will tell you, I mean, this part of the syllabus will tell you when we're having, like here you see there's an e-learning day on November the 3rd, so you may want to refer back to that as you make your schedule for the semester, because when I say I have an e-learning day, we will have it. I usually won't switch those. If I do, I'll give you a lot of advance notice. But anyway, week 1 looking forward will tell you what you're doing the next week. It'll tell you what you need to read to be prepared for the following week, and anything else that's coming up. It'll tell you if there's an E-Day or an in-class learning day. It'll give you all that information, so you have everything you need right there. All the readings required for the week will be in the week's module. The readings, so in week 1 looking forward, you'll see readings required for the next week. They'll be in the next week's module. And I'll try to open up the modules 2 weeks at a time. I'll go ahead and do that now since I said that. Anyway, everything is in the module that you need. Every assignment should be in there. Even reflections on the clinical visits will be placed in the modules, although they're soft deadlines. I do make recommendations of when you complete them. You'll find those in the modules, but of course you can find them under the Assignments tab too. So anything that's due, you should be able to locate under the Assignments tab. If you have any trouble navigating, we can go over that in the coming weeks as we start to get to know each other a little bit better. That's pretty much it. The class, the way I structure it is it's nearly 100% discussion based. When I ask you to do a reading, you're a college student, I expect you to have done it, so that you can participate for the discussion. The readings I have you do are not long. Usually they'll take you 10 to 15 minutes to complete. I don't have you read 50 pages. I have you read 10 or 8, sometimes 3 or 4 for each discussion. So it's not hard to do. The expectation is that you do it. Then you come in and the class is yours. We set up discussion groups. The instructors, we float around and we will visit some. If you're off course, we'll try to put you on course, but we really want you to talk about this information and plow through it yourself and deal with it yourself in discussion and thought, and disagreement even sometimes happens in the class, which is really fun when that happens, because you really have to think. When you disagree, you really have to think harder about what the topic you're discussing. Anyway, it's mostly your voice. There are a couple of times that I do a little mini lecture, and I hate it, but rather than have you read 500-page books, a nice 20-minute lecture to cover some overviews is a better option, I think. So a couple of times you will hear from me. I might get preachy from time to time. You just say a quick amen, and that's your way of telling me it's time for you to shut up so we can start talking and actually really learning, because I know nobody learns by listening to someone talk. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this super boring video. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all. We will have a lot of fun in this class, that I guarantee.